what are the new values of that system? And as you said, I hope it's that women can operate from being a
In the
woman.
heart.
And that's right. And that we completely redesign the systems. We still take bits that we like, but we're just who we are as humans, and the system we have now is so antithetical to each other. We are incentivized to be selfish and greedy and bring out the worst traits of us, yet all of us actually feel deep compassion, want community, want to connect more deeply with our neighbors. We've just designed a system where it's emerged a system that is the opposite of that. So that's exciting. Yeah, I feel like we're in the cusp of that right now, and we get to be here now to be the pioneers of that. And I think we're going to go through a difficult time, as any labor is, to birth something new, but that we will look back in 100, 150 years and go, wow, imagine being alive then. Imagine being there as humanity shifted their entire system and who they are, because we're on the cusp of that, and I feel it's a privilege to be here now, seeing this or planting the seeds of what will be a thriving, regenerative, ecological civilization, I do believe. It's just going to be a bit muddy to get there.
So, hello everyone. In this special conversation, we delve deep into the world of a visionary, a filmmaker, actor, director, producer, and an environmentalist. And his work really has captured my heart, but the hearts and minds of millions as well. And as I researched, he was nominated for North-South-West Australian of the Year for his outstanding contribution to the Regeneration movement, which seeks practical innovations to heal our planet one step at a time. So very welcome. I'm honored to have you here, Damon Gameau.
Hello, Beatty. Lovely to see you again, and thanks for having me on your podcast.
Yeah, that's wonderful. So, Damon, you have won several awards as an actor, and you have as well been nominated and awarded several times for your documentaries. But before we go into it, because I saw one of your documentaries, what was your path to becoming this actor and director, and especially with the topics such as the personal health and preserving and healing the environment and our really wonderful planet Earth?
Yeah, it's a very big question to start with, but I think it unlocks everything. So, yeah, I think I've come to realize through research and doing this work that the majority of humans on this planet are deeply wounded, and we've sort of we've built our relationships, and I'd say we've built our civilization on a deep wound. And we can get into that and the origins of it, but I think for me, in my research, it probably happened around 10,000 years ago as we moved from a more abundant sort of hunter-gatherer society to an agrarian culture that was based on scarcity. So the minute that we had to hoard our possessions and accumulate calories, we developed an ego and a sense of other and hierarchy and domination and extraction. And I feel like we've never really recovered from that. And I was definitely born into that space. And so really got into acting from a wound of like a needing something, a needing of validation, a needing to be seen and applauded and given accolades. But it never really satiated me. It was never really enough. And so I went on a very big journey of self-discovery, and through all the different means that I'm sure many people are familiar with, from, book reading to treatments to plant medicines, the whole thing. And really confronted who I actually was and the shadow parts of me and things that really could have been improved in the way I was treating people. And in that process, as I'm sure you know, you expand, you move into a different part of you, you heal that wound and you move into more love and interconnectedness. And suddenly, for me, the focus wasn't so much about me, which is what acting is.
Yeah.
It suddenly shifted to beyond me and what can I contribute? How can I help? How can I change and help other people's lives or help them to heal? And that ended up, for me, going into storytelling because I realized how powerful telling stories can be. I mean, it's all we do, really. We tell stories to ourselves about who we are, but we tell large collective stories that we all operate within. And I just suddenly landed in this storytelling space. But more than that, they were stories that we then were able to pull families' monies and NGO money in to build campaigns around these stories so that they could instigate change and people would watch them and they'd feel this emotion. And then we were able to take that emotion and transmute it into action. And whether that was through nutrition, I did a film about sugar and allowed people to count how much sugar's in their food, take responsibility for their lives, feel healed again so they don't crave this dopamine addiction of the quick fix. And then that kind of naturally progressed into the planet. What could I do to help heal this beautiful planet? Because I think that same wound has driven extraction of nature, of the divine feminine, especially in men. We have conquered and wanted to control not just women, but the divine woman. And that's why we're doing what we're doing to this beautiful sacred mother. And so even by healing that wound and then telling those stories, I felt that that was the next step. It's not about me. How do I use my abilities to make this world a better place? And to not try and come from ego and like, I want to be the one to do this, but no, like a surrendering to something far greater than me, or even opening up to a story that happens to be coming through me and I can tell it, but it's actually not mine to tell. It's a larger story that I'm contributing to. So, and that's changed my life. That's been the journey I've been on the last 10 years. And I feel like I'm still expanding and moving into that sense of space and who I really am and letting go of the old wounded me, the little boy, and moving into more of a man and a leader, all these things that terrified me 10 years ago, but it's just a beautiful and exciting and enriching journey to be moving somewhere that feels very meaningful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, what you just mentioned, being a man, we had a discussion that at the moment we have the feeling that boys are running the world,
Yeah,
and not men. And this, for me, means integrating female and man power.
Yeah.
Is it what you feel as well? So you integrate as well the female?
Yeah. So I had the great pleasure of attending sort of like a men's work with 100 men recently, and men that were just willing to take responsibility for how they behaved and who they were in the world. And just watching that transmutation of literally boys becoming men in front of you and seeing their vulnerability and the courage that it took to do that. And then this beautiful acknowledgement of the feminine and how they have been mistreating it in their own way or undervaluing it. And that there isn't a story of like, which we're kind of in now in culture, the pendulum swing of who has the most control, whose turn is it, as opposed to what is that integration point where the magic really happens. Because we both need each other in so many ways. And when we are aligned, it's spectacular. So I've been on my own journey of that and seeing where I've had shadows around that, my own upbringing, what culture taught me about what it means to be a man. I've had to have some confronting looks at my own story there. And when you do, as you said, you see, this is no disrespect to them, but God, we're looking up to Elon Musk's of the world. We're looking up to these Andrew Tate figures that are just, they're wounded boys. And they're in a system that wounds, that rewards the wounded boy. gives accolades to the narcissist and the psychopath, they usually reach the top and then set the rules of the game. But unless we shift that, and we're not going to get to this better place. We're not going to start protecting the planet. We're not going to start valuing the feminine unless we stop making these boys are heroes. Because often our leaders are the least amongst us, and that's why we've built this system and why we're seeing all the flaws in it. So that's the deeper layer that we need to fix and shift and heal that wound, because then with different leaders, we shape different policies, we make different decisions, and it's coming from a different set of values and a heart-based, soul-based, connected world, which I know Sam, who you spoke to recently, who was on our trip, which I love some of his work he's trying to do, is how do we take our political leaders and get them to lead from that new space? And the same applies for all of our design of democracy, of our economics, the way we treat nature, our architecture. If it all comes from a new regenerative set of values, then we build a completely different and more beautiful world together.
Yeah. And the main one of the main parts from my experience is as well that women, for example, who are as well good in leading, are trying to lead like men, and they try to behave like men. And what I've discovered during the past 30 years, and with myself as well, trying to do that makes you hard inside, very hard. And this is something which is not female. So as well, women who wants to lead and to change have to learn to get access to the divine women within. And so we both have to learn. It's not only the men, it's as well the women. Everybody has to find its own role to lead the planet to a better place.
That's right. That's right. And you can understand, because we've designed a system that incentivizes that hardness, like there's not much room for compassion. If you have to send off the children or your population to a war, you have to harden up, whether you're a man or a woman, to do that. If you have to make a decision so it gives you a geopolitical position of power, through a trade sanction, there's a hardness in the system that's required right now, because it is a dog-eat-dog rivalrous game that we're playing, that doesn't allow this healed wound in a man or a female to shine. In fact, they'd get laughed at probably, or ridiculed. So I think that's why, from certainly my research and opinion, is that we're seeing the unraveling of the old story, the old system right now. We're seeing it everywhere, in climate, in cost of living, in fractured democracies. We can all feel it. So there's a chance, as that unravels, that we do get to usher in or birth this new story. And how are we going to operate differently from there? What are the new values of that system? And as you said, I hope it's that women can operate from being a woman. And that's right. And that we completely redesign the systems. We still take bits that we like, but we're just who we are as humans, and the system we have now is so antithetical to each other. We are incentivized to be selfish and greedy and bring out the worst traits of us, yet all of us actually feel deep compassion, want community, want to connect more deeply with our neighbors. We've just designed a system, or it's emerged a system that is the opposite of that. So that's exciting. Yeah, I feel like we're on the cusp of that right now, and we get to be here now to be the pioneers of that. And I think we're going to go through a difficult time, as any labor is, to birth something new, but that we will look back in 100, 150 years and go, wow, imagine being alive then. Imagine being there as humanity shifted their entire system and who they are, because we're on the cusp of that, and I feel it's a privilege to be here now, seeing this, or planting the seeds of what will be a thriving, regenerative, ecological civilization. I do believe it's just going to be a bit muddy to get there.
Yeah. And I believe as well, we are now always already in between a time and a space where you have to go and you have to step into something new where you don't have any reference points. So, and this is something where the most people have, as from my point of view, fear, because the power within is missing where you have your roots, and therefore you have fear because you don't know what happens, and then you don't do the step.
I love it. I love it. It's that you just nailed that. And I think we saw that during COVID too, was the when suddenly there was this mass period of uncertainty and no one quite knew what was going on. Instead of just sort of surrendering to that, we're not wired to do that. So all these different narratives, like 30 different narratives about, just proliferated because people were clutching on to a story they could anchor and get some security on. And I feel like we're going through that now. And I've been through a very big emotional journey myself in the last year, and loss. And what it's taught me is how non-linear time gets in those moments when you are on your knees and miracles can happen and things come in that you never could have predicted in your rational mind, because somewhere you've just kind of let it all go and you're surrendering. And I do get the sense that humanity is going to have to do that to a degree, that we want to cling on to this old world and hang on, it's what I know. But it's like, but it's destroying the very substrate with which you rely on, and we can't keep doing it. So just get your fingers off the wheel. You're going to have to, it's a bit scary, but that's going to have to happen for us to have this new thing emerge. And again, you're right. I think we're playing with that right now.
Yeah, we are just beginning to play with it, and it's really a matter to learn, to be excited, not to know. Just to be curious. Okay, what's around the next corner?
Yeah, exactly. And that takes some work, doesn't it? Unless you've been through it yourself in your own life, it's hard to intellectualize, or people are so confronted by that. You actually need to take the leap. And then go, oh, it's actually okay. And this is actually a beautiful way to live, because you don't know what's coming next. And when you do stay in that space, just the wonder and the beautiful experiences that you can have, because you've broken the sort of the predictability of your old existence. And I think we're doing that collectively, which is, scary when it's 8 billion people. But I'm confident we'll eventually get somewhere pretty special.
What about you doing a film about it? I just get pictures. So you have the ability, the creativity, and all the things to just visualize that going through a door, or climbing a mountain and falling down and be held and not know what's going. So what would that be?
Okay, leave it with me. Well, I guess 2040 in a way was sort of the, you're trying to use that idea of visioning and showing people, or getting them to feel what it would be like to live in a more abundant world. But I think what the film didn't do was touch on the sort of the personal regeneration that's required. It was much more about the, the systems and the ecosystem regeneration. But as I've got older and matured and gone through my own things, I've realized how important the self-regeneration is of human beings. And so, maybe that's the next piece in the puzzle is, all right, leave it with me, Beatty. I'll let you know about royalties and rights when I start writing it, so that you can you can get a credit.
Of course. I like to give my input, because I have so many pictures and ideas, and I never know how to bring them into life. So So, but this is exactly when you say, okay, first it was the health, then it was the environment itself, and the gap is in between, missing you as a human being. But let me go to the that sugar film. So you did it because I see that we have to have good health, we have to have a good mindset, and we have to have the courage for the future to really regenerate everything. And this film, I saw that it is still the highest crossing Australian documentary all time across Australia and New Zealand. And I saw some things that you that you really did a diet with sugar,
Yeah.
make this movie and to have this experience. So would you like to share some?
Yeah, so that was a big journey for me. Yeah, and it came about because it was probably about 10 years ago, and it was when this sort of the discussion of sugar first sort of hit the mainstream, and there was such binary debates about it of whether it was, evil and poison, or whether it was actually really good for you and you needed it for energy. And so our first daughter was born at the time. And I was like, well, how do people decide? Like, it was, again, the beginning of the information warfare as well. It's like, how do you actually know? Unless you have your own experience of it, you don't sort of know who to believe. So I decided to have my own experience of it, and thought I would film it. But I guess the catch of that film, for people that haven't seen it, is that I didn't eat any known sugars. So soft drinks or chocolate or ice cream or lollies or anything. I didn't have any of that stuff. The only sugar I ate was hidden in foods that are marketed as healthy. So low-fat yogurts, orange juices, muesli bars, cereals, things that have got pictures of bees and flowers on the front cover, and they all look, they use all natural and those sort of words. So I did this experiment where I had some doctors and nutritionists and other people monitoring my body, and I ate what most Australians eat every day, and are marketed and told to eat as a healthy diet. And so, for example, I sat down for breakfast and I had this cereal called Just Right, which I think is also in Europe, and I had a glass of apple juice and I had some low-fat apricot yogurt.
Yeah.
And there were 21 teaspoons of sugar in that. So when we're recommended to have maybe 6 a day, and people probably think, well, that's in a bit of chocolate I might have at the end of the day. I think the film did so well around the world is because people went, what? Like, hang on a minute, 21 already. And so my body just deteriorated in a very short amount of time. And I did get the signs of like a fatty liver disease, onset of type 2 diabetes.
Wow.
11 kilos of visceral fat in 6 weeks. All these things happened so quickly to my body without me touching a soft drink or anything. And I think that was the big wake-up call. And so that was just a remarkable experience, because then that was the first taste I got of how powerful storytelling is, that this simple film I made with a lot of friends, we made it fun and playful, was suddenly going around the world. These people were endorsing it. I was doing parliamentary screenings to governments who were then introducing policies around sugary drinks. And it was like, what? Like, this is a little film I made, but look how it's impacting people's lives. And probably for 3 years there, I'd get stopped on the street every day by 4 or 5 people that would say, hey, my husband's just lost 35 kilos after seeing your film, or he's reversed his type 2 diabetes. And that was just so beautiful to see, what impact you can have with the story. And so that really, I guess, gave me confidence in the storytelling, gave me confidence in stories that are going to impact change. And again, with that film, we raised a lot of money to develop materials like curriculum materials so that could be taught in schools. We built this app so people could go to the supermarket and scan a barcode and then shake their phone, and it shows how many teaspoons of sugar is in a particular item, because the companies are very clever with using grams and different ways of hiding the sugars. So we just made all that really easy for people, and they were just loving it. They wanted those resources. So yeah, and I think along that journey, I just realized, I guess, the food industry, the sugar industry, there's just so many metaphors for what the system is.
Yeah.
And how these things that aren't great for us make the most money, whether it's addiction online, whether it's addiction through alcohol or drugs or porn or food. This sort of limbic capitalism that we're in right now, that these companies, if they don't put certain amount of sugar in their foods, people don't buy them. So they keep adding more and more, and they get into this warfare of, it's just, and there's scientists, hundreds of scientists at companies like Nestle that are studying the exact amount of sugar that people love, and they're testing it on children through it. Like, it's just wild. And I guess I sort of got to see underneath the veil of the system there and advertising and how it all works. And that really intrigued me into
Mm.
What is this system we've designed for ourselves that is just not serving us? It's the opposite of well-being. It's almost impossible to, you have to really work hard to be healthy in this system. And that's so backwards. Like, and then, you know, I just saw how that applied to fossil fuels or ocean plastic, or, you know, it's the same story. The same flawed architecture of the design of this system is causing all these externalities. They're not separate things we need to address. We need to understand that the core drivers and incentives of this thing we've built doesn't factor in obesity, ocean plastics, climate pollution. These are all things we just make invisible while we focus on making as much money and growing the system every year on year on year and getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And it's destroying our well-being and it's destroying the planet, you know. So unless we have that conversation, we're not going to get anywhere. And so that's, yeah, that was a long answer to your question, but yeah, that's the sugar really set me off in lots of ways. And as you said, just feeling the difference of suddenly having less of it in my life and eating less processed foods and more real foods. And then that journey of what gut health is and microbes, which led to healthy soil and all those connections and how I felt differently.
Mm-hmm.
So, oh, I want this for other people, because to me, especially, it was around the mood stuff, which I think is still not quite in the mainstream. It's getting there, but we get the physical, but we don't get the mental link from the foods we eat quite yet, and how transformative that can be when you are eating the right foods and what that does to your brain health is so important.
Absolutely, because kids who get, for example, chocolate that they sleep well, they are being addicted from the very young age. And of course, addiction means that somebody can control you.
Yes.
And this is the main reason, from my interesting point of view, that everything is done to really control as well some people. And if you are controlled, you don't speak up.
No.
And I think it's now the time that we have to speak up. So with documentaries like you do, and when this spread out the world, then we can slowly reach the mind and
Yes.
reach the potential to be more aware of.
That's right. And yeah, and I think the next step in our progression too is to understand that we have so much in common, even though we are polarized sometimes into these kind of left, right, or we, you know, people have different views. When you actually talk to people, there is so much in common around a distrust of the system, a frustration with like you said, being misled into the foods we eat or what we're looking at online, all these things. And you can describe them in different ways, but actually, if we could find a way to all come together, we would be the most powerful and potent force ever in humanity in terms of a movement. And we would overthrow these psychopaths that are making our decisions for us in a flash. But it's in their interests, of course, to make sure that we're polarized. There's this big race war, there's a culture war, there's a, you know, sexuality war. All these things are perfect for them. But it's an illusion. It's actually an illusion, because we do want really similar things. And that's what an area I'm sort of moving into at the moment, is where can we find those bits? And as we experienced on that boat, we were so privileged to be on in Antarctica. There was this incredible array of different people and perspectives, and we couldn't go anywhere. We were trapped on a boat for 14 days. And so I found it so valuable to unpack with the people that we might have had differences in to begin with. And by the end of the trip, you realize, oh, right, it's a couple of things we disagree on, but largely we're both feeling like we want change and we want something to happen. We're going about it slightly different ways. So how do we make more of that happen, as opposed to further and further polarization, is probably another big issue of our time. How do we soften the fragmentation that's occurring right now and find those points of harmony and consilience that we can actually come together and make decisions on?
So this is what I as well had an extract of your 2040 movie, where I was very impressed how the kids which were there, the children, what kind of concern they have about our future, and that that's really important, what we started in Antarctica as well, having a global network to change something. So, and this would strengthen us for the future.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think so.
It is, like we talk about regeneration, and
Yeah.
I think the children are they're not our only hope, because we've got to do the work. We can't rely on them, but it's like the new saplings that are growing in the forest. And it's our duty to nurture them and to water them properly and give them the right healthy fertilizers so they grow strong. Because some of the older trees are too established now. They're not going to change their ways. They're deeply rooted in the ground.
Mm.
But it's the values that are coming through and the awareness of these children, which is extraordinary. And the last film I did, which is not out yet, but which is called Future Council. And I took these 8 children from 8 different countries around the world, all between 11 and 13, all very passionate about a particular environmental cause. And I just spent 3 weeks with them, and we drove across Europe, and we got to meet some of the CEOs of these very big transnational companies. So the children could call them out and challenge them and say, what are you doing for our future? Why do you keep polluting the oceans? And through that journey, the children formed this idea that they said, we should be this future council. And we're going to invite all the other children that auditioned for this film. And so one of the last scenes is them online running this council themselves with the CEO of a huge company. And it was just like, it's so beautiful to watch, because you think here that the leaders of the future are already here, and they're already doing it. They're already leading. And if we can support them in the best way and learn from them and guide them in what we should be doing in terms of our wisdom as elders, like we're going to have a better planet. The world's going to be really quite spectacular. So again, that's what I'm hoping with this story. And we're building a campaign around that to build that future council for them so they can run it, but let us get all the infrastructure and the finance for it. But you build this network of children around the world that are not only challenging these leaders politically, but they're also forming this network that you've said. They're also getting all sorts of other skill sets that they're going to need for the future that they're probably not getting at school right now, that they can form this leadership network over the next 5, 10, 15 years. And who knows what that could lead to. But it's just, I saw these children light up when they were just empowered and they were heard. And someone didn't say, oh, go back to school, you don't know much. They said, oh, actually, you know more than most adults about this stuff, because this is your future and you're deeply immersed in it. And I watched these CEOs who would often walk in with, oh yeah, I'm seeing some cute kids and they know some stuff about the environment. I'm going to give them my platitudes. And then the kids would go, well, hang on, your report that you wrote 5 years ago said this, this, and this. And suddenly the whole room shifted, because they went, oh gosh, these kids they're only 11, but they're so insightful. They're not precocious. They're honest. They care so deeply that they do the reading. And suddenly you just watch these CEOs, whoa, change gears. And it's so beautiful and it's so hopeful to watch, because you're like, oh, wow, that girl's 11 and look how passionate she is. And she's not demeaning him. She's not patronizing him. It's just coming from this pure place of love for the planet and for the future. So I'm really excited to see what that film unlocks in people, because it'll be challenging for some people. It'll be difficult. As we had it on the boat, a couple of people said to me they found it really, watching children deal with these big existential issues is confronting for some people, but this is their future. They care so deeply and they're so frustrated by the lack of action that they're getting, that they're sort of taking things into their own hands. It's quite extraordinary to watch.
Yeah. And I think if we don't confront, we can't change. So
No.
confrontation hits something. So, and either the person has the choice to leave and not to care about anymore, or something opens up and something changes. So
I love that. It comes back to your point before around our inability or reluctance to step into that uncertainty zone. And when we are challenged on a viewpoint, it's an opportunity, isn't it, to open and step into that uncertainty. And the more we can do that and lean into it, the better person and the better we're going to be. So that's a great thing, even for me, like to embrace those moments rather than get defensive and shut down. Or I don't know, this is a little portal into a richer, deeper you, and it's a portal into a better planet if we can step into that space that's uncomfortable, and we might learn something and we might grow from it.
Yeah. And I think that the young, so-called young people, the young children who are now coming to Earth, or which you have met already, they are very old souls, and they know what's now needed to change, and they don't need an education, and they don't need school, and the most of them say already, well, the school doesn't learn me anything. Why should I go there?
Exactly.
But they have everything within them.
They do. It's, yeah, anyone that's seen the new film, they've just said, where did you get those? Where are those children from? Because just as you said, their eloquence and insightfulness, they just know exactly what needs to be done, and they're so young, but they get it. And I think what was also important was that they're not. We've been influenced by the system. Our generation, older, we've been corrupted in a way, in that we thought, well, this is just how it is. But they're still a little bit outside it, and so they're able to go, hang on, why are you? And so some of the questions they'd have for the CEOs was it was common sense. And the CEO would go, well, that's just the way it is. And it's like, yeah, but why?
Yeah.
And it's true. It's like, it's refreshing for someone to look outside what you're doing and go, why are you doing that if it's destroying that? And they go, well, actually, why are we doing that? Like, and so that was so refreshing too. Just the simplicity of their worldview is kind of what we need right now. We've created such complexity that we've tied ourselves in knots. And we've made things far more difficult and probably complicated than they need to be in certain areas.
Yeah, and we have to ask different questions than we ever have asked before. So my favorite question is always, what else is possible? So if you get stuck in something, so what else is possible? And the answer will come through something, through the universe, through a person, through a movie, whatever, it comes. So with this, we can change.
I love that. Yeah, I've done that accidentally for years too, of instead of saying, gosh, how does it, it doesn't get any better than this.
Yeah.
I say, no, how does it get any better than this?
Yeah.
Even when it seems like it's so good, it's like, how can it get any better than this? And it usually does somehow. So you don't put a ceiling on it and say, God, it doesn't get any better than this. You blow it open and you ask the question, and then all sorts of wonders can come in.
Yeah. Oh, it's always more possible than we think.
That's right.
So when is your movie out, the new one?
I'm not sure yet. It's been an interesting journey. I won't go into it just yet. I'm probably not allowed to, but it's been quite complicated, just dealing with some of the, I guess, entrenched corporate power, and then the new paradigm of the children, that some people haven't been that comfortable with that, and I guess underestimated the children a bit. So that's brought with it some interesting challenges, but really great learnings for me, and great to be, on the precipice of this friction point. Has been really interesting learning and watching some of these companies have their own internal wrestle and debate about this, and the humanity within those companies coming through and going, oh yeah, hang on. Like, that's been a really rewarding experience I didn't expect. So I think it'll be out probably later this year. But yeah, we'll release that globally as well. So I think, and we're really going to focus on taking it to lots of schools around the world. And we did that with 2040. We had such a great response for schools and sugar. They still teach the sugar film in schools, part of the curriculum around the world. So this one, I think in particular, because it's seeing these children so empowered, will be really, really good for the students, and give them a shot of hope as well. That's
great. Yeah, so before we end our wonderful conversation, I could talk with you all night long.
Me too.
Good morning.
We should get a boat. We should get a boat for 14 days to Antarctica together.
When we stepped the first foot on the boat, I always said, I said to myself as well, okay, I can't escape now, 10 years. So Yeah, it
Yeah.
was good. It was good.
Yeah.
So before we close our wonderful conversation, I have two last questions. The one is, what do you wish for the world? And the second is, what do you wish for yourself?
Ah, gosh, I think they're probably similar answers, but for the world, I long for that wound to be healed in people, and for them to see and feel the beauty that's all around them and available at every moment, from a connection to a fellow human being or the reverence of the living world that's all around them every moment, and how much people have shut off from that. So I hope in the future we reconnect to that in a very deep way, and we value nature differently, we value each other very differently, and we measure our success in a completely different way that incorporates all that. And I think for myself, yeah, I just hope I keep growing and learning and surrendering and staying humble to all this magic that I feel is happening around me at the moment, and yeah, keep just stay in my heart and stay soft, despite the challenges that lie ahead, being a parent in this crazy world, the unraveling that I think we're going to all see very sooner than most people think. I hope I can stay soft during that, and be a leader for people, and help usher in this beautiful new story that's on the way, play my part in that. Yeah.
Wonderful. I thank you so much, Damon, that you have been here with me today. I wish you all the best and so many creative ideas for the next whatever will come and whatever you would create.
Yeah. Well, I'll send you the outline of the new story you suggested maybe soon. Your lovely idea. Let's see where that goes.
Yeah, great.
Yeah.
Okay.
Great. Thank you, Betty, and thank you for your beautiful treatment on the boat too. It really was really special and perfect timing. So thank you for that offer as well. And it's been great to be able to reciprocate, and we share some time today. So thanks for everything you're doing.
Thank you.
Great.
Thank you for watching. Click on one of the videos below to continue your journey and tell others about this channel. And please subscribe.